What is up, guys? This is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm bringing all of you guys my updated Chaos Dragon deck profile for this brand new July 2015 ban list. Alrighty, so finally Clash of Rebellion has hit us in the TCG, and there were a couple of choice cards within the set that I really actually wanted to try and test out in Chaos Dragons, as in my opinion there were some cool cards within the set that were actually overlooked in my opinion, that actually just really do just give Chaos Dragons a leg up, for the fact that some of the new cards within the set actually help Chaos Dragons alleviate some of the major issues that they've had over the past while, like consistency, and just their plays that actually just keep negging them, like just negging them cards, which in my opinion is really really bad nowadays, as things like Burning Abyss and Necros just make all their plays either for free or they plus off of their plays. So we really cannot afford to have plays that just neg us one sometimes, which is really really awkward. So of course I have tested this deck around a bit and actually am really just liking the new cards in this list, and of course I am going to showcase that to all of you guys today. So let's get right into it. So, starting us off, we have our obligatory 3 copies of Light Pulsar Dragon, because he, of course, is the best Chaos Dragon within this deck, as he is a free Chaos Summon, as most of the Chaos Dragons are, as well as he can float, and he can recur himself from the graveyard. So, of course, he just keeps coming back, and, of course, is our 2500 stick of the deck, as well as he can help us get into our rank 6 plays. So, we have the 3 Light Pulsar. Then, moving on, we have our 1 copy of Dark Flare Dragon to act as one of our one of our dragons that we can float into through Light Pulsar's effect. And we also have the 1 Dark Flare in here also to help us alleviate some of the cloggy hands that we might end up drawing into at times. So, of course, we also have the 1 Dark Flare Dragon for that. Then moving on, we have our 2 copies of each baby dragon. We have the 2 black dragon and the 2 white dragon. Of course, because these guys are our floaters of the deck, and they try and help us get our single plays to be as free as we possibly can get them. So of course, we have to have 2 of each. Next up, we actually go into one of the newer cards from the new Clash of Rebellion set that are making it into this deck list, and that is 2 copies of Keeper of the Shrine. Now, this card, after reading it for the first time, I was absolutely in love with this card, as it just really does help Chaos Dragons in that one big issue of always having to neg themselves with their plays. So, what Keeper of the Shrine basically does is that whenever a dragon on your side of the field is destroyed by either battle or by a card effect, you can actually just special summon this Keeper of the Shrine from your hand or graveyard for free. So, basically what Keeper does is he helps you one-to-one every single one of your dragons, and technically can make all of your dragons float now, which is really cool. And then I also should mention that his effect can be activated from the graveyard as well as the hand. So, if we end up milling him through things like our Lightsworn cards, he still can actually help us get through our plays, and again just help us make our dragons keep floating, which is again really really cool. And of course he is also a level 4, so we can use him himself to go into our rank 4 plays or our level 8 plays, so that's also pretty nice. Then we move on to the generic Chaos Dragons, of course, which is the 1 copy of Eclipse Wyvern, the 1 Dark Arm Dragon, and the 1 Red MD. Of course, because this is a Chaos Dragon deck, and we really cannot run a Chaos Dragon deck without these big dragons of our own. Next up, we have our generic Chaos Support, which is our 2 copies of Chaos Sorcerer and our 1 BLS. Of course, because this is a Chaos Dragon deck, we gotta have the generic old school Chaos Monsters, because again, they are still very strong nowadays. Moving on, we go right into our Lightsworn engine, which actually starts us off with, of course, the 3 copies of Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn, because he can help us get mills during our turn, so that we may use those milled cards for our own plays again during our turn, as well as he also can just help us mill 4 throughout the entirety of a turn, and he can act as our level 4 tuner of the deck. Moving on, we have our 3 copies of Lumina Lightsworn Summoner, because of the fact that Lumina can help us get weird cards out of our hand and into our graveyard, as well as she can help us get into our level 7 synchro plays, is also really really strong, and of course that's also why we do have her at 3. And then finally, we do have 2 copies of Lila Lightsworn Sorceress to round off our Lightsworn engine. Now, I have cut Lila from the generic 3 of to now 2, as we do have, let me see if I can just grab it off for you guys. We do have these cards in the deck now, so I felt that 3 Lila was unnecessary in my opinion. Of course, she is good, as she is searchable back row removal. But again, because we are running that other card I just showed you guys, we really do not need 3 in my opinion, so I have cut Lila down to 2. Moving on, we have, again, more generic support, which is 2 copies of Curry Bandit. Now, again, this is another card that you do actually want to open with alongside our entire Lightsworn engine, as of course he can get cards into our graveyard first turn. Now, I should mention that because some decks are very, very strong nowadays, where they can just throw OTKs onto the board like nothing, it is fairly risky to just summon Curry Bandit first turn, as you, again, really would prefer to have a Lightsworn monster first turn. But again, we do have the Curry Bandit, again, to just up the consistency of the deck, and to ensure that we can, again, open as best as we possibly can. Moving on, to synergize kind of with Curry Bandit, we do have the 2 copies of Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. Again, it's more here for that first turn whenever you have to leave yourself open through that Curry Bandit play. And again, Gorz, of course, is that very, very strong summonable hand trap that we do run. Now, personally, I would run 3, but right now I do only have 2, sadly. I don't have a third Gorz anywhere. I looked everywhere in all of my cards, and I could not find a third Gorz. But in my opinion, I would personally run 3 Gorz for the fact that, again, we are running this card, and we really do not want to leave our field open at any given point in the game. So I would want to run 3 Gorz, again, just so we can see it as often and as early as we possibly can. Moving on, we have our 2 copies of Plague Spreader Zombie to act as our level 2 synchro of the deck that can help summon himself from the graveyard. So of course, there's also some pretty cool plays that we can do with Plague Spreader in this deck. So that is why, again, why we are running 2 of him. Then, for the final monster we do run, this is more or less just a meta call for me. I do also run the 1 copy of Thunder King Ryo, again, just to shut down things like Clayfort's Tellarknight and Nekroz, and again, to just try and floodgate them to the point where we can accumulate our big boards in Chaos Dragon, and so that, again, we can promptly try and OTK them. So we do have the 1 Thunder King to round off our actually fairly big monster lineup within this deck. Alright then, moving on to the spell cards, we of course start off with the 2 copies of Charge of the Light Brigade. Again, like I said with Curry Bandits and the Lightsworn engine, we do want to open the Lightsworns as early as we possibly can, as our preferable first turn is to, of course, start off with a Raiden. So we do have the 2 Charge of the Light Brigade to act as our 4th and 5th copy of Raiden, as well as also we can use it to search out whatever other Lightsworn we might need at any given time. Then, moving on, like I showed you guys with Lila now, we have the 2 copies of Galaxy Cyclone because we really do not like back row in this deck. We are fairly susceptible to some choice back row cards. So, of course, we have to have the Galaxy Cyclones in here to, again, help us get through the opponent's back row. And I should also mention that it's fairly significant because if we do mill Galaxy Cyclone, we can still use it to kill some of those choice floodgates like Vanity's Emptiness and Lose the Turn. And I should say especially Lose the Turn because this deck auto-loses to that floodgate because of the fact the majority of your summons are special summons. And because this deck cannot do any aggro plays when they're in defense position, we really do not want Lose the Turn to be on the board for any prolonged period of time. So, of course, that is also why we are main boarding the Galaxy Cyclones. Moving on, we have the 1 copy of Soul Charge because, again, we are trying to mill cards into our graveyard to, again, use them either as Chaos Summons or to just get us into our plays. So, of course, we have the 1 Soul Charge to just get us into our ridiculous huge boards. And then finally, for the last spell card we do run, we have the 1 copy of Raigeki because, again, this deck can pump out damage fairly quickly and fairly early. So, of course, having the Raigeki to just Raigeki our opponent's board and then attack for game is really, really nice. So that will be it for these spells, and now going into the traps, which is probably the first time I've ever featured this deck on the channel where I actually did run traps. I actually just have 3 traps in the main deck to round it off. We have 3 copies of Balance of Judgment. Now, I will apologize for the proxies. For some reason, I did not have 3 copies of Balance of Judgment after the sneak peek, and I only had, again, that awkward 1 copy. So, again, excuse the proxies, but I have Balance of Judgment in here for the fact that this card is amazing in this deck. I have tested Maxi previously, and the thing that I really never used to like about Maxi is that if you ever used to just drop Maxi on when our opponent just uses things like Shaddoll Fusion or a Nekroz Mirror or whatever they might use, if you do end up dropping the Maxi on that play, they'll usually just try and maybe special summon the 1 monster that they were going to summon, and then stop their play right there and just use whatever they did and whatever board they might have had by then to just try and attack you with or whatnot. So, because of the fact that Maxi could be played around, I felt that it was very lackluster for the deck. And sure, it can catch the BA player off guard at times, but sometimes you just really just did not get value from the Maxi that you really could. So, after this new card, Balance of Judgment, has come out in Clash of Rebellion, this, in my opinion, is just a much more superior Maxi. Now, for those of you guys who might not know what this card does, I shall read it to you guys right now. If your opponent controls more cards than the combined number of cards in your hand and that you control, draw cards equal to their surplus. You can only activate one Balance of Judgment per turn. Now, so what this essentially means is that if you are ever behind in your in terms of card advantage compared to your opponent, you can just flip Balance of Judgment and then you just immediately draw as many cards as they have. So what that essentially means is that you now can actually do your necking plays in this deck, like with things like Plague Spreader and Light Pulsar and all those kinds of cards. Now we can actually use their effects to actually neg ourselves and not have to worry about just auto losing again because we took those neg 1s or neg 2s, because of the fact that we do run Balance of Judgment as in my opinion, it's an outstanding card that really shouldn't have been printed as a common and honestly should have been maybe printed as a secret rare because of how good it is. As again, in decks like this deck where we just have hard times gaining advantage, we can just use Balance of Judgment to just use our plays sort of for us actually when we neg ourselves again to just try and get back into the game and equal to our opponent's card economy, so that again we may have more access to cards and we don't have to worry about doing those big scary neg plays that we really again were trying to avoid previously. So that with those three traps, we are going to round off our 40 card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we start off with our big boss monster of the extra deck himself. We have the one copy of Dragositis, Corrupted Nethersoul Dragon. Now, we can usually go into this guy with things like a special summoned Light Pulsar and a normal summoned Plague Spreader, as we can, again, synchro climb into a level 10 with that kind of play. And in my opinion, Dragositis is outstanding. Of course, he is a 4,000 body, which can get over even that amazing Apocryphal Towers. So again, this is also a Towers out, and his effect also can just help you burn for damage and just have again a just huge monster on your side of the board that is actually fairly hard to out. So of course we have the one Dragositis, to act as our big boss monster. Then next up, I actually decided to organize the extra deck in terms of rarity this time, oddly enough. So we're actually going to put down all 4 ghost rares in our extra deck all at one time. We have the one copy of Stardust Dragon, of course, to help us give some board protection, as we really do not want to get Mirror Force and whatnot, because again, we can get blown out sometimes by those Mass Destruction cards. So we do have the Stardust there to act as some sort of protection. We have the Black Rose, of course, because we always have to have some sort of board nuke in every extra deck. So we have the Black Rose for that. We have the Clearwing in here because of the fact that it can be very, very strong against Necros. So again, just any cards that can help us in specific matchups can be really, really helpful. And then of course we have the one Star Eater to act as another Apocryphal Towers out, as well as to just act as a standard just 3200 beater. Moving on to our other synchro monsters, we have our one copy of Michael, because we can make this with Lumina and Raiden, and of course Michael is just spot banish removal, so that's always nice. Then we have the one copy of Scrap Dragon to help us abuse our Keeper of the Shrine, as well as to just help us destroy problematic cards from our opponent's side of the field. We have the one Beals and the one Void Ogre because of the fact that these are our Dark Dragons, sort of, I guess you could say. And of course, both of them bring their own powerful effects to the board whenever you can make them. And then finally, for the last synchro we do run, we have the one copy of Goyo Guardian, whenever we have to have our level 6 synchro plays active and whatnot. So of course we have the Goyo to round off our synchro lineup. Moving on to our XYZs, we start off with the one copy, of hitting the camera. We start off with our one copy of Levier. Now, we can usually go into this guy, we're actually pretty much only go into this guy with 2 Luminas. And I would say that I was considering running Dante, but the fact is that we do not run the Burning Abyss engine at all now in this deck. So I really felt that Dante was unnecessary. So that is why I did settle for this Levier to be our sole rank 3, because of the fact that we can use Levier to get our banished Lightsworn monsters whenever we do banish them for our Chaos Summon. So again, just having it helpful recursion for our Lightsworn monsters never hurts. Then we have the one copy of Queen Dragon Jin to help us get big level dragons from our graveyard back onto our field to either use as just defensive walls or to use for our XYZ plays or our synchro plays. So of course we have the one Queen Dragon Jin. Then we have the one Castel and the one Exiton to act as, again, just fairly standard rank 4s and that are pretty much just helping us toolbox our Keeper of the Shrine as well as our baby dragons into whatever we might need between these 2 cards. And then finally, for our last XZ monster we have the one copy of Constellar Ptolemy M7 because of the fact that this is probably the only significant rank 6 that we do want to run, as our level 6s in the deck are already fairly strong by themselves. But whenever we do need it, we do have the Ptolemy to help us do weird things like grab BLSs from Graveyard or use it as just a standard compulse. So of course we have the Ptolemy to round off our extra deck. And then, of course, pretty much like the trend has been going in these past videos, I gotta showcase off the one UC token that is always gonna sit forever at the bottom of my extra deck. Alrighty guys, well I hope you all did enjoy this brand new updated Chaos Dragon deck profile for this brand new July 2015 format. I just realized that the video has been going on for quite some time, so if you did stick around until now, I really will thank you guys again for just sticking with me and some of the theory and some of the cool cards for this brand new deck. And again, I hope you all did enjoy this deck profile, and as always, this is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out, bye bye.